So the ride story takes place in 1935, just before the first movie in 1939. Indiana Jones has found a map in the Lost River Delta of India. Due to a flood, most of the temple is now underground and being preserved by museum curators. The expedition runs out of money, so Sala decides to open it to the public to give tours of the already excavated portion of the temple. Indy goes into the temple himself and learns of a deity named Mara who gives either visions of the future, eternal youth, or earthly riches to whomever passes his test of not looking into his eyes. Indy succeeds and goes into the room of the future where he sees a vision of himself and Sala finding the Ark of the Covenant. Now, while this is happening, what the media perceives is that Indy has gone missing inside the temple. So Sala hopes that the tours are able to help find him. When you board your car, you enter one of the three chambers, either the Fountain of Youth, the Vision of the Future, or Earthly Riches, and accidentally look into Mara's eyes. Instead of going into the next chamber to receive your gift, Mara lifts your car towards the gates of doom, only to be stopped by Indy, who is holding the gates closed so you can escape. You then escape to find a 40-foot tall, desecrated head of Mara that tries to kill you. You try to escape through the mummy room as corpses are flung at you. You go into a room full of deadly bugs, but manage to escape before you cross the bridge in front of Mara's head. For a brief moment, you believe the car in front of you is going to crash into you until it swerves off. Then you enter into a snake room where a cobra attempts to bite your head off. You escape into a corridor filled with human skull heads as Mara's deadly spirit appears to attack you. You escape under the bridge and into a dark hall where you narrowly navigate through a horde of rats. You then enter a hallway designed to shoot darts at you by triggering the patterns on the floor. When you reach the final room, you see Indy hanging over your head, asking to jump into the car with you. The rolling boulder comes rushing towards you, and you are taken underneath it. When you turn the corner, Indy is standing in front of the fallen boulder with a witty one-liner to send you off, like, next time you're on your own, or not bad for a tourist. So, yeah, go ahead.
I've only been on this ride like once or twice, but it is significantly better than its East
Dinosaur?
Coast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
hate
so much more
Dinosaur.
elaborate. And what's interesting about it is that it's gone through some pretty significant changes in the last couple of years. So there was one version of it. Let me write this here where I put that. There used to be a lot of practical effects like falling dirt. So when you would turn from the gates of doom into Mara, the desecrated 40-foot Mara head,
Mm-hmm.
there used to be like dirt that would actually fall from the ceiling onto the floor. But what ended up happening with that was that the practical effect took so much like cleanup and resetting that I would only do it once every 4 cars.
Oh.
And then there was a fire effect that took place when you're on the bridge. It would spit fire upwards right next to you, and it was so close you would feel the heat. And that got a little bit too dangerous. So both effects were actually replaced by a puff of smoke. Poof. Lit with
Fun.
orange. Yeah. So it's a little bit, there are some effects that are a little bit cheaper now. The rat room is actually just a dark hallway, and then you go, there used to be, remember the Pirates of the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean effect with the fog gate? They replicated it in Indy because it
Okay.
did so well in Pirates. Meanwhile the Pirates one is gone, but the Indy one still remains. But it is so fast and so not well done that nobody really knows
Okay.
what it is. It's supposed to be a branch that rats are climbing along, and you're kind of supposed to like dodge under it. But yeah, it's not a great room. That little portion there. So let's go, and so I'm gonna get deeper into why that is the way that it is, because I wrote down at least a page and a half's worth of Easter eggs and fun facts about this ride,
Okay.
because it is chock full of fun facts.
Love
First off,
that.
the attraction has over 2,100 depictions of snakes.
Oh.
Fun fact. Yes.
Oh, fun.
Snakes.
From the ride entrance to the end of the queue, at the end of the ride itself, there are 2,100
It's always got to be
snakes.
snakes.
It always has to be snakes. The broken down truck in the queue is actually a prop from the very first movie. Fun fact, that's the one that Indy climbs up during Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Love it.
While it is moving.
We
The
love reusing.
Yeah, nice. The exterior queue lights are supposed to be all powered by the generator in the outside queue, but the weakness of the generator is the reason why the lights are always flickering. And you can hear the motor. Of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I know what you're
generator
talking about.
clacking and
Yeah.
stuff. That's the reason
Yeah.
why the lights
cool.
flicker is because the generator is so weak. Inside the temple, the first thing you see is a picture of Mara with his eyes closed and holding depictions of all three gifts. So he has the treasure, the water to represent the fountain of youth, and then I think it's like a puddle underneath for like the vision. I don't remember what vision of the future is, but it's something like that. And there's a tiny chamber in the indoor queue where a full skeleton sits. And by tiny, I mean it's like a crack in the wall, and you have to like walk up and look at it. The first booby trap room in the queue is actually a reference to the spike scene in Temple of Doom. And there's a bamboo pole in that room that can be pulled, and it triggers an effect where the roof will actually descend a little bit. But it does not work as often as it should. But I do remember when the queue was at its fullest, and there were all kinds of like fun little effects that way. In the Rotunda calendar room, which is in that circular room right before the video, there's a ceiling mural of Mara with a bridge painted in front of him, implying that the skeleton face on fire in the ride is in fact Mara in his true form.
Fun.
And as you go throughout the ride, you'll find that the kind of like godly kind of facade of Mara is just that, a facade, and he's actually a terrifying skeleton. So fun stuff about that. The safety video room is known as the stone tablet altar because the front of it shows 3 stone tablets depicting each of Mara's gifts. So you have all 3 of them laid out in front of it. You'd think after all that time we would know more about the gifts thing, right? But we don't. Indy's office is chock full of Easter eggs that we don't have time to get into, but to name a few, the famous Obi-Wan Kenobi reference on the crate, which a lot of people point out all the time. And also there are various telegrams from Indy explaining the rest of the backstory. So all those things about the backstory are in those little telegrams. Originally, the ride had an effect where the doors rotate. So when you go into that first room, you see those 3 doors. They originally had a system set up where it would move. So you could kind of go, it's the same track going up to Mara, but the doors themselves would actually move, so you'd be going to your left or to your right depending on where you needed to go. So it kind of made for a very unique experience each time.
That's really freaking cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but they actually got rid of it. I don't know why. So now you go straight ahead, but the gifts are now portrayed as lighting projections on the doors. So they look like carvings, right? They're actually not. It's just projection, which is really cool. When you go into the chamber the first time, you used to see like blue light, orange light, purple light, and now it is seriously more in depth than that. There is scrim on the sides for the Fountain of Youth, so it looks like water on the side. And when the scrim is lit, you can actually see the wall behind it, which has depictions of the earthly treasures. When it's lit up
cool.
in orange.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then for the visions of the future, it is that whole dark purple with the stars everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also Mara used his eyes used to puff smoke out of them when you look into his eyes, and now the eyes actually just open because of the projections. Yeah, it's really cool. And so and it kind of, it's cool for each one. I think the coolest one is the Fountain of Youth one, because when Mara's eyes open and catches you looking at him, the face starts to like rust and age.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
It's so cool. The other ones are kind of weird, but like that one is really cool. One of the skeletons in the mummy room is actually wearing Mickey ears that says Bones. So his name is Bones. There is a room that has 1,995 skulls.
Oh my god.
1995. It's a call out to the opening year.
It's a call out to Haunted Mansion.
When you stop in the dark rat room, it's when you go into the dark and then the car kind of stops, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh no, why did the car stop?
Mhm.
That's actually so the boulder scene can reset itself.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then I wrote that one. Okay, so the ending boulder scene is actually a really impressive piece of engineering. When you're in the boulder scene, your car starts to shake and kind of move backwards a little bit, right? That's what we're familiar with. Fun fact: you're not moving at all. This is one of the cool. I actually had no idea that this was a thing, but and maybe that's just me being stupid. But the car actually is static, and
It's the boulder
shaking
that
in
moves.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing that moves
Yeah.
actually. It's the hallway and the indie animatronic at the top with the rope. They all move away from you
Uh-huh.
while the boulder that is continuously spinning moves closer and closer and closer until it stops at the end of its track, and you go underneath it from there. There's a really cool picture that kind of depicts how it works, and it made it so much more clear to me because I was like, how does this thing work? But it was super super cool. Um, so yeah, when the boulder seed resets, the hallway comes back and the boulder goes back where it belongs over there. So it does
Nice.
it takes a minute to get that stuff there, which is why the car stops in the rat scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Really cool stuff. So back to Forward Parks and Indiana Jones. Tokyo's version is titled Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Crystal Skull, not to be confused with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is the fourth installment in the series. Temple of the Crystal Skull follows nearly the same exact track as the California attraction, but it has different special effects. So leading up to, they don't do the whole three gifts thing. The queue is mostly indoors and quite large, instead of a half mile long. Um, they kind of play with um, a lot of things in that same room. This one is actually set in Peru, the Lost River Delta of Peru, and not the Lost River Delta of India. Why? I don't know. But the it has like this like South American feel to it, and we only guess that it's Peru because the attraction next to it is a roller coaster that has the Inca Empire artistry. So it kind of makes sense that they're right there next to each other. So Lost River Delta of Peru, and you're finding the crystal skull. That's the whole thing. So instead of Mara, it's the skull, and then it's the Gates of Doom. Same exact thing, except when you get to the rat room, that infamous rat room. Instead of the log fog, I'll call it the log fog. Instead of that, you're confronted with a crystal skull on an altar that spits fire at you. But it's not fire. It's that same puff of smoke with a projection to look like fire.
That's cool.
It's really cool, and I suggest that you YouTube it because it is really, really cool.
Whenever she says rat race, I always think of like the
Rat room?
the rat room. I always think of the rat race and the carousel of progress.
So that is that, and then the sphere hallway also has more 3D effects to it versus the 2D effect that we have in California. It has like these vines on the walls and then like idols on either side on like these columns. So it's really cool. That's Tokyo's, and that's what we mentioned earlier with you and the Soarin connection to Temple of the Crystal Skull. So that's cool. And Temple of the Crystal Skull actually takes place before Forbidden Eye. Fun fact. So
Okay.
it's like 1931. Is that what we said? 1931?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then 1935 is Forbidden Eye. The Paris attraction in was going to be called the Temple of Peril, and have the minecart concept, but Disney lost so much money from the Euro Disney flop that there was a significant budget cut for the coaster. You were going to pass a giant tiger. The queue was going to have animatronics in it. There was going to be a part where you go inside the temple. And they presented the Imagineers presented it, and they were like, "How do we have this much money? We told you we were on a budget. Go back." So they literally copied a roller coaster system from another European park. It's a copy paste. It's the
Mm.
exact same thing, but they just put temple ruins in it. You don't go in it. You just go around it. You just fly around it in your little mine cart. It's boring. So it's really just super basic. They did briefly move the carts backwards. So you're riding it backwards the whole time to kind of give it more of an adventure feel. But that was lame. So they switched it back. That made it worse. So they switched it back to the front facing side. And that is currently what is left of Indiana Jones in Paris. I'm done.
Yeah.
I did it.